there, which is good to hear. So it was very nice. It's a whole different impression because you're not a small group of people celebrating. You've got everybody around you is doing the same thing. So it's very nice. And then we had a group of friends came for lunch on Friday. We started at 1 and did Birkat Mazon at 4:15.
So we're going to learn a
had
little bit here in continuing in the Kashrus laws in Yeridea about Tvilas Keilim, very relevant topic. And we have here an introduction in the Tzurba MiRabanan, and you'll see that on page 184, based on a pasuk regarding Milchemes Midjan. They took the booty from Midjan after they defeated the Midyanim, and they wanted to use the utensils that they had taken as spoils of war. And the Torah says, Kol asher Kol davar asher yavo ba'esh tavir ba'esh v'taher, which means that anything that's normally used over the fire, like, for example, a frying pan or the like, then it requires what's called libun, and only then v'taher. Here the word taher means, and it's mutter, because the fire takes out any blia of isur. And then the Torah says, ach b'mei nida yischata. And now the Torah is talking about a mikvah. Mei nida is a mikvah. V'chal shel yova ba'esh tavir b'mayim. And tavir b'mayim is a reference to Hagolah. But Rashi points out here, in the name of Rabbeinu, sha'aflach shiro mina isur, haton hitin tvila lechol lekli matechos. That not only do you have a halacha of removing the isur in order to, that's balua, in order to allow you to use the kli, but Chazal derived that you have to take the kli and put it into the mikveh. Now Rashi is telling us a very important chiddush here, and that is that there are two independent tracks here. One is to remove the isur balua, and the other is to be matir the kli. And the matir of the kli is not dependent upon the balua. It could be that this was a brand new kli, and you found it, it's shining, and it was never used. You still need to put it into the mikveh. And what does it mean when the Torah says b'mei nida? Rashi says mayim hara'uyim litbol lehem nida. It's a body of water that is roy for tfilas nida v'kamahem arboim sa. So the kli mateches that was taken from a guy, even if it's brand new and has no blias iser, would not be mutter. You can't use it unless you put it into the mikveh. So again, Tvilas Keilim is not an offshoot of Hechsher Keilim or Hagolas Keilim or Libun Keilim. No. Separate, independent entity. It means you got this kli from a guy, you want to use it, first you have to be tovel it in the same mikveh that a nida would be tovelis. And all the laws of Tvilas Keilim are brought down in one single sugi at the end of Masechta Avodah Zarah. The Mishnah there says, "Halokeach kli tashmish min hagoy." You purchased one of these utensils from a guy. Eshedarko lahatbil yakbil lahagil yagil labin ba'or yalabin ba'or. So far, this Mishnah is addressing what we call blias isur and how to be machshir Keilim and remove the blias isur. But the Gemara adds Tana, a brisa that's an extension of the Mishnah, a kulon, and in all cases, no matter what kind of hechsher you need, tzrichem tvila barbaim shasa. You need tvila. My taima minani mili amar arava makra kol davar asher yavo ba'esh tavir ba'esh v'taher posif lecha kosif tara cheres. So besides the process of hechsher kelim, of libun and hagol and the like, we also have another tara. And what is this tara? To take the kli that you purchased from a guy and to and to put it into a mikveh. Now, is this mitzvah of Tvilas Keilim doraisa or not doraisa? So let's take a look at Rashi in Masechta Avodah Zarah. The sugya over there tells you that if you purchase from a guy a special scissors, it's used for shearing wool off a back of tzon, then it doesn't need tefillah. So Rashi explains, the requirement of Tvilas Keilim has nothing to do with Iser that was absorbed in it. And therefore, you would have a Havamina that perhaps in the case of Zuzah de Sarbala, maybe you would have to be tovelit in a mikveh, even though it has no blias Iser. But the answer is that we're talking about clay seuda. And this scissors, which is used for shearing the wool off its own back, is not a kli seuda. It's not used in the context of eating on a table. Now, the language of Rashi, Gzeras HaKosav, he sounds like we're dealing with a Doraisa. You don't usually use the term Gzeras HaKosav when you're referring to a D'Rabbanan. And the Trumas Hadeshen says that if you buy metal utensils from a guy and they need Tvilah, he's allowed to send a katan who's not bar mitzvah for the Tvilah. That was the questioner. But the tshuva, the response to the Trumas Hadeshen was, Yirad lo shari lemevet hach. The halacha would not allow you to send a katan to do the tefillah. And the reason for that is because tefillah is a doraisa. He says, Kema the tefillas Keilim alakuchim and anachim doraisa lo mehemne alei lekatan. The Torah doesn't rely on the action of a katan. Afal gav de biyodahu, even though he could take the kli and put in the mikvah. Milks to the Lesley Torah, and it would not require a great deal of exertion. Says the Trumas Hadeshen, if Tvilas Keilim would be D'Rabbanan, then we'd apply the principle of Himnu Rabbanan B'Rabbanan. The Rabbanan, when they make a takana, they accept the testimony of a katan. So, for example, if a katan says that this house was checked for chametz, well, the entire institution of dikas chametz is only the Rabbanan. Himnu Rabbanan b'Rabbanan, the Rabbanan will believe the katan with regard to a din Rabbanan. But if it's a dorais like Tvilas Keilim, says the Trumas Hadeshen, then you can't believe a katan. And now we turn to page 185. Shulchan Aruch Paskins Yardesi Mekov Chav Ein Ma'aminim LeKatan Al Tvilas Keilim. We can never upgrade the ne'emanis of a katan to the level of a doraisa. And now the Ramah adds a comment. Aval im tvala lifnei gadol havi tvila. B'di'evet, if the katan in the presence of a gadol was tovel the kelim, then it is effective. So the katan doesn't have ne'emanus because tefillas came as doraisa. His Maisa Tefillah, if it was supervised by a gadol, is meaningful. And it sounds to me like what the Shulchan Aruch is paskening here is that the Tefillah is in the Chefetz of the Kli, meaning the Chefetz of the Kli has to be submerged in the water. It's not so much the Maisa Tefillah of putting, you don't say Asher Kichon Mitzvot Simonu Litbol Es HaKli, on the actual act of Tefillah, because the mitzvah is not the act of tefillah, but rather that the kli should be submerged in the water of a mikveh. We need someone, a gadol, to supervise the katan because we don't believe the katan that the tefillah actually took place. However, I have to admit, Rabbosai, my definition of Tvilas Keilim is not sufficient. What would happen if a kli that you purchased from a guy and it was made of metal and is for Suda would fall into a mikveh? Or it was pushed into the mikveh by an animal? Are you going to tell me that the chefetz of the kli is tovel because it's submerged in the waters of the mikveh? No, no, no. But the Maisa Katan is considered a Maisa Tvilah. Why? Because the Katan is capable of doing a Maisa when the purpose of the Maisa is to impact on the Chefetz. Let's look at the Rambam. Hilchos Machos Asuros Perek Yud Zayin. Tvilah zu shematbilin klei suda and elkochim and agoyim v'achkach yutru lachilo l'shtia. You see where the Rambam puts all the emphasis on the heter. V'ena le'inyan tu v'tara. We're not talking about tu v'tara at all. The kli itself might be perfectly tar. So why does it need tefillah in a mikveh? Ela b'divrei sofer. The Ramaz lo etc. In other words, the Rambam understands that the derivation from this pasuk v'tayr is only an asmachta. But on a doraisa level, there's no requirement of tefillah. And to the best of my knowledge, that's the unique sheet of the Rambam. Now he quotes the number 8, the Yeshuas Yaakov. I'm assuming you have this in front of you in the phone. Re'isi levar kan im Tvilas Keilim Chadoshim and Al-Koch V'Nagoyim and Ator MiRabanan have Isur L'Shtamshus Bakli Chodesh Shenikach V'Nagoyim Kodem Tvilah. He writes here, Isur Shtamshus Bakli Chodesh Shenikach V'Nagoyim Kodem Tvilah Eino Ela Rak Chashash D'Rabbanan. Somehow, the Yeshuas Yaakov accepts the Rambam's position that Tvilas Keilim is only D'Rabbanan. The Ramah adds him Ovar Vishtamish Bekli below Tvila. He cooked something in a metal pot that he bought from a guy without Tvila. Lo Nesar Mashanish Tamshabo. So it's interesting. You might have said that if you get benefit from violating an Isur, that itself is awesome. So by eating that which was prepared or served in a kli that requires tefillah, and it was not toivel, you would have said that you're not allowed to benefit from that object, which has a requirement of tefillah. But you could say it a little differently. That Tvilas Keilim is a chovas gavra. And it doesn't create any iser in that which you cook in the chefta.
Yeah, could you say when he says it's only derabanan, it means the use of the use of it. The action of tefillah is daraisa, but he's saying after using it and when you use it, the iser is only derabanan. Can you split it up like that?
Well, he's pointing out that whatever you want to do with this kli before tefillah is only also b'Rabbanan.
Right. He's splitting it up. He's saying the action of tefillah. He's not talking about the action of tefillah itself. He's only saying using it for eating and drinking is a derabanan, is an issa derabanan. The action of tefillah is an assay of you have to. It's a deraisa that you have to tovel it, but the isser is only derabanan because he's trying to make a comparison. He's saying whether it's because we have the isser of blias, so this isn't that. So why is it telling us that there's an isser to use it if we have an isser of blias and we're not necessarily having that isser? Could it be like that? Is that what?
That it's a brand new kli, so there's no isser because of the balua. Now right. You have an isser because you aren't tovel it, and he wants to point out that isser is only derabanan.
Right, because it's not that. Yeah, because.
But you want to say, Joe, that maybe the chiyuv itself is doraisa.
Right, the assay is doraisa. Because otherwise, how can he say it's not doraisa? It's written clearly.
Yeah. So the chiyuv tefillah is doraisa, but the iser's tamshus without tefillah is only derabanan. That could be. Truth is, he doesn't even use the word derabanan here. His language is lo nesar mashin nishtamish bo. Whatever you cooked in this pot without tefillah is not awesome. So it could be that the use of the kli without tefillah is a bittul essay. You're being mevatel the essay of tefillah, because the essay of tefillah requires that you be matir the kli through tefillah. So the moment he benefits from the kli without tefillah, he's violating that essay. Okay, he violated the essay by using the kli, but that doesn't mean that the food stuff that he cooked in that kli is going to be awesome. I'm just wondering if there was a havamina to say that the food that he cooked in the kli would be a heftzah d'isura. I mean, similar, but don't compare it to Maisa Shabbos. Now he quotes the Mishnah Berurah in Bir Halachos on the bottom of page 185. So this we saw already in the Ramah. The Afagav the Avedi Surah, he shouldn't have done this. It was a bittul the mitzvah of Tvilah. Afilu Hachi says lo gazrinon. There's no gzeir. Now he asks the question, but what about Shema Yisha? In other words, should the Rabbana make a gzeira and establish an Isur on a Michael? And why would they do so? It's not enough to say that there was an Isur violated by Shimush in the Kli. And if we allow him to get away with using the Kli, maybe by leaving the Kli around and delaying his Tvilah, he might use it over and over and over again. And that's called Shema Yisheh. You see, if there was an element of tumah here in a kli shev lakom yakum, and the pasuk of the Torah means to be v'tayr the kli, then you could say that if you cooked in the kli, somehow it became tameh. There was some admixture of tam or a passage of tam from the kli to that which you cooked in the kli. But now we're saying no, even if it's a brand new kli. So there's no element of tumah, there's no element of isa, there's nothing balu in the kli. Nevertheless, it requires tefillah. And now we're up to page 186. The Ritva, quoting Yerushalmi, the Fisha Yatsu mi Tuma'asim shall goyim l'kedushasim shall Yisrael. So what I understand from this Yerushalmi, which is a Pel of a Chiddush, is that just like this gerus for a person, a guy can become a Jew, so too this gerus for a kli, an inanimate object. And he goes from Tumas Goyim and enters into Kedushas Yisrael, exactly as a convert does it. And the Ritva's language is very telling. After quoting this Yerushalmi, he says, V'li nira de mila kodemis l'tvili kuva. In the case of a guy who needs fageris mila and tefillah, the mila has to come first. Dim lo came to olam isa tefillah kodemis. So you might argue that Tvilas should come before Mila, because Tvilah is the Iker mitzvah of Gerus. No, we want Mila to come first. So he says that Mila and Tefillah represent two concepts or two achievements. In the case of Mila, it's Lotzeis Mitumas Goyim. In the case of Tefillah, it's Likones B'Kedushas Yisrael. And therefore, you must have See, I'm afraid I'm reading too much into this Ritva. Let me think about it one more time. You see, when he begins, let's say he takes a kli that was used by a guy. Let's say in the case of the booty that they took from Mijan, you might argue that first you need Hagala and Libun and Hechsher Keilim to remove the Blia before you could be tovel it into the mikvah. Because by removing the Blias Isur, it's parallel to Lates Mitumas Goyim. And that has to come first. It's like Sur Mirava Seito. First, you got to get added Tumas Goyim. However, this is not true. And why not? Because even if you buy brand new Keilim from a guy, you need Tvilah, which means that Tvilah is totally independent of Blias Isur. And if that be the case, why not do the Tvilah first? Right? We don't want to be Masha Mitzvah. So if I read this Ritva correctly, if If it was an old kli that was used and had a blias isa, then you would require Hagola, Libo, and Hechsher Keilim first, and only then Tvila. And that would mean Tvila Tzricha L'Basof. Tvila should be implemented at the end of the process. But if you're buying Keilim Chadashim, there's no blia, there's no need to get rid of a blia, there's no need to remove Tumas Akum, just go straight for his kadrus, for the gerus, so to speak, of the Keilim. Okay, Rabosa, if it's with your permission, and if you won't have any tightness to me, I'm going to end the shir a little bit early today. I feel like I need just to relax a little bit. But I do want to continue on this topic, but I have to get some feedback. I don't know, Bruce was here, but he left. I don't know, David came in now, but I don't know, me v'mia holchim. I don't see Yudi or Bob.
Bob just got back from Israel.
Oh, I see.
But I'm sorry. So I'm just trying to. You're making comparison here between Mila you're trying to say that Gerut and Tefillah of Keilim would be the same?
No, I'm saying that the similarity could be as follows. That just like Gerus requires two stages, first through Mila you get rid of the Tumas Akum, and only then through Tvilah do you add the positive Kedushas Yisrael. So too, if I take a Kli, as in, let's say in this case, spoil, booty from the Mijanim, and it's got a Blia of Isa, that's like Tumah of the Goyim, and I have to remove that before I could go ahead and do the Tvilah. Says the Ritva, no. I'm going to prove to you it's not like that. There's no interdependence here between removing the Blias Isur and the Tvilah, because even if you bought a new Kli and there was no Blias Isur, you would still require Tvilah. So you see that Tvilah is a separate, independent obligation that has to be fulfilled. Do it as soon as you can, but the sequence is not important. So that what I'm trying to suggest here, and again, I want to think it out and research it a little further, is if you have an old Kli that you bought from a guy, or you took it as spoils in a war, and it's got a blias isa, you could still clean it out with no chatzitza, put it to the mikvah, and later on, as an afterthought, you'll do the Hechsher Keilim, you'll do Libun, you'll do Hagolah, whatever you have to do. Because they're two independent tracks.
Which means you can't make a comparison to Gerus.
Correct, and I'll prove it to you. In Gerus for a human being, by definition, there's a Tumas Akum. You can't deny that. You want to enter into Kedushas Yisrael. First remove the Tumas Akum, and that's Mila, and then you enter into Kedushas Yisrael with Tvilah. But here, we're talking about a new Kli. So there's no need to remove any Tumah. There's no Blia inside of it. And yet, as we say in Yiddish from Deswegen, you still have to do Tvilah. So that Tvilah stands on its own. And if it stands on its own, then even in a case of a Kli Yashan that already has a Blia in it, the Chiyuv Tvilah is independent. And again, you have to make sure there's no Chatzitza. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the Blia in the walls of the Kli.
Okay. So whatever the Rav wants to go with, nobody's going to.
Oh, so you know what? I just want to add one more point here before we end. I just saw the last line. Do you see the last line? He says, "L'gabi lokech Keilim Yishanim." So I said in Keilim Yishanim, the sequence is irrelevant. Whether you first remove the Blia and then do the tefillah, or the other way around. But take a look at his language. He says, Amru sham magi'ilon umatbilon. And if you take that literally, it means matbilon. I'm sorry, magi'ilon first, remove the blias iser, and then second matbilon, then put it into the mikveh. So he is accepting that parallel, that analogy to Gerus, but only regarding Keilim Yishanim. And to prove to you that I'm right, he adds the following words, Lomer de Tvilah tzricha lebasof. So it could be what he's saying here is lebasof, that the Tvilah actually has to happen at the end of this entire process, which begins with Hagolah, Libun, etc., and ends with the entire. Okay, we'll see what happens. You know, I thought we'd get into this, but I see it's very, very complicated, you know, very long. All right, let me say goodbye and thank you and have a great week.
Okay.